And welcome to another edition of Murphy's Hockey Law here on CLNS Media. I'm your host, Jimmy Murphy, and I'm happy to be joined by an old friend and colleague in the biz. I don't know when the last time I saw her was, but Andi Petrillo. You know her from Leafs Lunch on TSN 1050 in Toronto. And you will also see her coverage of the Olympics if you live up in Canada. And Andi, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, for sure. And busy time, I'm sure, for you right now as you're preparing to head over to South Korea. And as we were just discussing off air, you were actually battling a little ailment, huh?
I know. I got hit with a chest infection that took me out for a few days, but I'm trying to see the positive in it, and I'm like, might as well get sick now before the Olympics start, so when I'm in it, I will be okay and not have to worry about it. So I'm trying to pawn it off like this was all planned and it's all strategic. Just get the illness out of the way now, and I'll be completely immune during the games.
Well, load up on bottles of honey. That's all I can say. And I don't know if they have Jameson and tea over there to go with it for a hot toddy, but that will do the trick. It always is for me. Hey, listen, before we get into talking Leafs and NHL, Andi, I'd love to give the listeners a little background on, how you got started in the hockey media biz or sports media in general, and, where that was and, where you're from, all that fun stuff. So why don't you just take it?
Yeah. Oh, geez. I mean, I feel like whenever I answer this question, it starts to dawn on me how long I've been around. And then, other people have been around a lot longer, so I still have so much reverence for other people in the industry. But for me, it really started back in 1999, was on a full-time basis when I really started volunteering at a local television station. I mean, I was still in school at the time. And, I had just been doing that while going to school. And then when I graduated in 2004, I ended up getting a full-time job at a local station as the sports producer and host. And I covered a variety of sports, and, one that obviously I gravitated towards because I've watched and loved it my whole life was hockey. And we used to do a weekly Junior A game every Thursday night. We'd go live from the arena. And it was the Newmarket Hurricanes, which, if anyone, knows the story of Connor McDavid, he was in love with the Newmarket Hurricanes because he's from Newmarket, so he'd go to all the games all the time. I'm much older than McDavid, so I was covering those games while he was some little pipsqueak in the stands, right? But, I also covered the Markham Waxers. Steven Stamkos was part of that organization. So it was really cool to just kind of be around York Region. That's what the region is called, York Region. That's a part of Ontario, where I was covering a lot of the local sports and getting to cover the hockey team. And then from there, I ended up going on over to Leafs TV, right? The station owned by Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment. Uh-huh. And that was my entrance into the NHL, and that would have been 2006. And that was really cool because I was the reporter for them. I traveled with the team as well, so I was there for all the road games, the home games, the practices, you name it. My real taste of, actually having to work hard. But what was great with being with Maple Leaf Sports and Entertainment is they obviously also own the Raptors, so I got to do some basketball stuff, Marlies, and then they ended up acquiring Toronto FC, so I got to do soccer as well. So, even though hockey's always been my main sport, it's always been nice to be able to be a part of other sports as well. And then from there, I went on over to Hockey Night in Canada, which we know is, the main hockey show nationally across Canada here. So that was really cool, and that, gave me another appreciation for the sport, because with Leafs TV, you focus on the Leafs. Exactly. Even though you have a general knowledge of the rest of the league, really you're Leafs oriented. So when I went to Hockey Night in Canada, you had to then encompass all the Canadian teams for sure, and definitely have a knowledge of the rest of the league. So that was another, step in my career and another challenge as well in getting to know the league. And then from there, I went to the NHL Network, and now I'm with TSN and still with CBC, which I get the best of both worlds, because with TSN, as you mentioned, being host of Leafs Lunch and also, filling in for James Duthie on the Leafs broadcast, I get to be part of that pro sport world. But with CBC Sports, I cover all these amazing high performance athletes and all these high performance sports from, alpine to bobsleigh to figure skating, which keeps my foot in the door when it comes to the Olympics, which is pretty cool. So I get the best of both worlds. I'm in a really good place right now, but it's definitely been a long journey.
Oh, I know the feeling. That's pretty cool that they let you, because I know they're two different companies, right? They're kind of competitors, that they let you do that, huh?
Yeah, I get asked that a lot because, in Canada, really you just have three major sports networks, right? You have TSN, you have Sportsnet, and you have CBC Sports.
Yeah.
But the difference, obviously, is, CBC Sports is more high performance. They don't dabble in the world of pro sports. So they're kind of like, what is it, Switzerland, right? Like they're in the middle there. They keep the peace. They get along really well with the other two networks. But what also makes it work, politics, of course, are always at play here. With CBC being the main rights holder for the Olympics, TSN is the first partner. So TSN then is CBC's first partner for the Olympic Games, and then it's Sportsnet. So, there's a different relationship there with CBC and TSN. So I think that's another reason why it allows it to work.
Perfect. We'll just call CBC the Switzerland of Canadian sports then. Is that?
Yeah, I feel like that's what they are.
Hey, listen, so now you're back kind of definitely doing a lot more Leafs again on Leafs Lunch. I listen to you a lot, and you guys do a great job there. And actually, you got to tell Mr. Weaver that Jimmy Murphy says hello, because I'm good friends with his agent, Jerry Buckley. So.
Okay, I will pass that message along, Mr. Dreamweaver.
Yeah, the Dream. He's doing pretty good too. I had him on my show when I was doing Sirius XM NHL Network, and you could kind of tell he sort of had it in him there, but he was a little raw when he was still a player. And but it's good to see. Like I think he's progressing pretty well with you there, eh?
Oh, yeah. It's like anything. And, this is what I see with a lot of athletes who then want to get into the broadcasting world, right? For a lot of them, it's a transition that makes sense, right? Especially as analysts, because you're talking about a sport that you know very well and you've been playing ever since you were a child. But I still think it catches like a lot of guys off guard, because they think it's going to be an easier transition than it is, because they're like, I play in front of thousands upon thousands of people. I'm used to eyeballs being on me. But I'm like, well, it's a different kind of eyeballs, right? Because people are watching you play. Yeah. Now people are watching and listening to you speak. And I think it's still, like, for how many years now, the number one fear just among humans, and that's public speaking. So I said it's a completely different ballgame. So I think a lot of guys, are kind of caught off guard by that. And they all say the same thing. They're like, well, I feel like a rookie again. Yeah. Like, even though I know the sport and I'm comfortable with the sport and I know the people in it, they're like, this is just a completely different beast. And I just said, don't put too much pressure on yourself. Allow yourself to be a rookie again, because really you are. You're completely new to the broadcasting world. And once you accept that, I find you're a sponge, and you're willing to learn, and you're willing to progress, and it just ends up happening naturally. So, it's funny all the time, right? Guys kind of come out, they're like, yeah, I got this because I know the sport, and then the red light goes on.
Oh my
they have to talk in a camera or microphone, and they're like, uh-oh, I don't know what to say.
Yeah.
Oh my God, okay, I've been here before. Don't worry, I got you.
And I think about it, though, luckily for Weaves there, when I covered, I was covering the Canadians. I was living in Montreal for 3 days, and I was there when he was there, and his stall was right next to probably the one person who's never going to feel uncomfortable in front of the spotlight, and that would be PK Subban. And I think PK had a good influence on him in that respect.
There's one thing that we're not contemplating here. I'm definitely the best looking out of all three of us. So I just wanted to put that out there. I know we're on national television right now. Millions watching. I just wanted to put it out there.
Do you snore?
Yes.
You look like you snore.
Yes, I snore. Yes.
You guys.
Oh, yes. That's an understatement, yeah.
Oh, yeah. If there's one guy who's not shy, that is definitely PK Subban. And I got to say, as much fun as I'm having watching him play, there's another part of me that cannot wait until the day PK Subban retires, because I think he is going to be such a great personality in the broadcasting world, provided that's what he wants to get into. He may have other ideas and other ventures, but I just think that would be so fabulous, because he's such a great personality. And I think it would be a seamless transition for him. Just to, on a side note, another sport, I've been floored by how easy Tony Romo has made his transition seem. Like, I think he's such a natural, and I love listening to him.
Oh, it's great. It's been great. And I love to, like, good for him too. Like, I've heard him do some Cowboys games as well. Completely objective. And I think that's one of the biggest struggles you'll see a former athlete have, is when they have to do their former team, or the team, for his sake, the team he was with all along, to just put that aside and actually criticize them. It's natural, right? You can't criticize them for having that lack of objectivity. But when you hear Tony Romo, it just comes to him naturally. He speaks the game so well. He's so intelligent. I'll agree with you there. But, you mentioned PK and what he might do. Man, I have a friend who they shared the same agent. My friend Chris O'Sullivan, who played in the NHL, and he's now really good friends with PK. And the stuff he's like, dude, this guy has got his hand in everything. I don't know what he's when he becomes, when he gets out of hockey, he's got so many different ventures going on. Obviously, the charities that he does are amazing, but it's unreal. Like the stuff, he's so creative. And I'll tell you, I saw him the other day on the Daily Show, and he was great.
Yeah.
And, I feel, and I don't know if you agree with me, I just think the NHL isn't doing enough to harness what he brings and what he can do to, we always see them trying to put these games in markets where hockey's not popular. Well, how about use these players that you have to expand your game and expand your reach? I mean, PK Subban's like gold for that. And I just think they're failing in that department right now.
And it's no surprise because the NHL's never been a league that has celebrated personalities. I mean, the hockey culture has never been a culture that celebrates personalities. It's always, don't stand above the team, don't have the spotlight on you, don't ruffle any feathers, just blend in, don't speak out. That's always been very much ingrained in the hockey culture. And in fact, we were discussing this, even today on our show, because as we're getting set for the All-Star weekend, and every year it always comes around, do we care? Do we not care? Are people going to watch? Are they not going to watch? And I feel like we never have these conversations, when it comes to NBA All-Star, right?
Right.
And I just said, because to me, like in the NBA, they most definitely celebrate personalities. And I said, and I'm a firm believer, like to me, there's really no difference between the shootout in hockey. You can make the shootout just as interesting as the dunk competition. And I'm not trying to take anything away from basketball players, but let's be honest, there's only so many ways I can watch you dunk a ball. Ooh, ah. Right. Like it's not the dunking that gets everyone excited. To me, it's the personalities around it and everyone freaking out and jumping up and down and going, oh my God, did you see that? And after the player dunks the ball, the way he turns around and strikes a pose and the face that he makes, it's all attitude, right? To me, that's what makes the dunk competition. And I find it so fun. You can do that in a shootout in hockey, but right away hockey players like, no, there's only so much you can do to be creative. It's cheesy, it's dumb, it's this. And I'm like, see, but you're already approaching it that way. You're not even thinking about how you can make it fun and creative. Fine, maybe you eliminate the goalie because let's face it, the goalie doesn't want to get injured. So a goalie's not going to make, a cross-crease save, in the shootout competition at All-Star. I get it. So maybe we got to put our heads together and think of, I don't know, do you, put one of those cardboard things in the net? Do you do something with the net where it's like all these, different kind of obstacles that you have to get through, like mini golf? I don't know. But you do it in a way where the guys are forced to be creative in the shootout. Maybe you add in a little ramp and he's got to jump off the ramp and go down and shoot through a ring before it gets through the net. I don't know. There are things that you can think of to make it creative. The difference is basketball's willing, hockey isn't. So when you say to me, is hockey celebrating or at least using a guy like PK Subban to their advantage for marketing purposes? Of course they're not, because that's never been in their DNA to do it. And it's very unfortunate.
And you went back to you just said it again. And in the beginning of that, you said, they don't like that in their culture. They don't handle it well. I mean, I don't care what anyone says, Andy. I mean, let's face it. That was the reason he was traded out of Montreal. We hear all the stories that come out of there, and his personality, unfortunately, and I don't think they unfortunately took it as malicious or selfish. That's just him. He's not really selfish. It's not all about him. It's just his personality, and unfortunately, it didn't mix with whoever the people were that wanted him out there. And it's sad. I mean, and I would love to see him end up back in Toronto. I mean, I think that would be unreal to have him there, but I just can't see Mike Babcock and PK Subban mixing two.
Oh my goodness, forget Mike Babcock. I think Lou Lamoriello would have a heart attack. I mean, this guy is all about controlling the players, controlling the message, controlling the media. I mean, so here in Toronto, before, because I've been covering this team for over 10 years now, all you did was you would call PR, the head of PR, and you would say, listen, can I request this player, right? So you get whatever player for whatever interview. If the player could do it, great. If he couldn't, then, there's a reason why he couldn't. But you always put your requests in through PR. Since Lou has taken over, there's no such thing as requests. You do not request a player. It's like out of nowhere, out of the blue, you'll suddenly get a phone call from the Toronto Maple Leafs, and they'll say, this is the player we happen to have available. Jake Gardner's available, and we only are going to make him available between 2 and 2:15. So where do you want him? That's how it's working now under Lou Lamoriello.
It's like the Patriots.
So you don't put requests in anymore. He just, the team just calls up and says, this is the guy we're making available. The guy may have, and here's the thing, right? And as members of the media, we typically request a guy because something has happened recently, right? So, for example, what's going on in Toronto right now, like Nazem Kadri's had a great string, 3 goals those last 2 games. So I would say, in the good old days, I would call PR, Leafs PR, and say, hey, I'd like to put in a request for Nazem Kadri. Can you join me on Leafs lunch? And then PR would, contact Kadri, see if it would happen. But now, because it doesn't happen that way, the team, contacts us and informs us who's available and when. A lot of times it may not even be Kadri. They'll be like, Connor Carrick is available today. And you're like, Connor Carrick? No offense to Connor Carrick, but he's not even a story. Like, why would we want to talk to him? I want to talk to Kadri. So that's how things are being run right now under the reign of Lou Lamoriello.
And let me ask you, it kind of leads to one of the questions I want to ask you there. And I see it here, obviously, a lot in Boston with the way it's very similar to the way the Patriots are run, with Belichick in charge there. And, not a lot gets out there and nobody, I don't know if you heard the soundbite the other day, but a Philly reporter trekked his way up to Boston for the first press conference, towards the Super Bowl here after the AFC title, the NFC title were won. And he had to be the first reporter I've ever heard do not just one, not just 2, but 3 follow-ups and pressure Belichick. And it was like, everyone was stunned, like, oh my God, how dare he do that? And I sort of get the feeling like you were just describing there that, is it taboo to question Mike Babcock in Toronto? Because I'll be honest, I think he's an amazing coach. I grew up a Red Wings fan. I love what he did in Detroit there. And obviously he's done great with Hockey Canada. And I think he's doing a good job with Toronto, but there's been a lot of stuff, roster-wise or philosophy-wise that I've disagreed with this season. And I think it's one of the reasons that the Leafs don't have that momentum, so to speak, that they had last year at the end of the year, but yet you're there. Maybe I'm not seeing it, but from the outside, it seems like it's really taboo to ever question Mike Babcock. Am I wrong?
Mike, talking with the players, consensus was Flyers were full measure for their victory here tonight. How'd the game break down for you?
Yeah, I don't like the third. To me, we had gifted 2 goals, so the one tough play, the goalie touched the goal, and then the play there that they come in, we're above those people. So to me, you can't do that. I thought we were set up pretty good, to be honest with you. I thought they worked hard, and I thought they moved the puck. But I thought we were in a real good situation, and in the end, we didn't execute on things we normally execute on to win. So that's on us, and 2 good points for them. But I really thought we let this slip. You got to get 1 for sure, if not 2.
Natural for the guys to quit pushing in the third, though, offensively when you have that lead? Yeah,
that wasn't our plan. That's not what we talked about, but we stopped pushing for sure. But even then, I thought we were in a great spot. Like I said, we had the goal exchange, and then they went off somebody in our zone and ended up in our net, and then the other one's just be above your guy coming back. It's so simple. So even with that, I still thought we were in a good spot to get point or 2 points, and we just didn't execute. So we got to do a better job.
What did you like on that first goal? Is it Marlowe getting kicked out?
Yeah. Have you looked at the face-off? Okay. Well, it doesn't much matter. It's over with. No official tries to be involved in anything. I didn't like it.
I think in the beginning, and I don't think it was that people didn't want to question him. I just think that, and by the beginning, 2 years or 3 years ago, whatever it is now. Geez, how long has he been around? 3 years ago? When he came on board, I think people weren't really pushing because it was just understood that, he was coming into a pretty dire situation. The team finished 30th for crying out loud. But they also knew that it was a teardown. So I think people were just willing to cut him and Lou Lamoriello and, even Brendan Shanahan's flack, because it's like, all right, you're tearing down, you're rebuilding, we get it. They kept preaching the whole, pain is coming, and people are like, yeah, I guess it is, right? Because we believed and understood. But I would say things probably started to change near the end of last year.
Okay.
And it's natural in sport. When you prove that you can win, when you prove that you can be successful, you can preach pain all you want. Doesn't matter. The expectations have changed. So, they go and they make the playoffs last year, and they give Washington a run for their money. It's not like they just squeaked in and then got demolished in the first round.
Yeah.
I mean, they went to 6 games. They were all 1-goal games. I think 4 times they went into overtime. So suddenly everyone's like, yeah. The expectations are higher now. So I would say almost from the beginning of the year, Mike Babcock has been questioned with a lot of things, from his line combinations to who he puts in. Nobody's really letting up on him. And,
okay. What's his
unfortunately, you can say fortunately, unfortunately, but he gives sometimes to me the Bill Belichick answers where you're like, no, you completely skirted the question or you didn't properly answer it. That's what can be frustrating sometimes with Babcock. Like, even for example, so most recently, we've been clamoring for him to change the lines, right? Nazem Kadri was mired in this, not only a goalless drought, but a pointless drought. He's not scoring in 20 games. And we just said, Leo Komarov, we just said, listen, switch him up, get him off that line. Leo Komarov cannot contribute offensively. He's not a playmaker. Get him off that line with Kadri, right? So he has changed the lines the last 2 games, and I'm gonna focus on that line in particular. He's put Mitch Marner on that line with Kadri and Marleau. So he said the reason why he did that was he wanted to change things up on the road, because the last 2 games were on the road. And he's like, we need more speed and offense, and because we don't have last change on the road, this is why I'm switching things up. But I'm probably going to go back to the normal lines once we're on home ice. So, of course, the last 2 games have been an incredible success for the Leafs. They've won the last 2. And as I mentioned, Kadri has 3 goals in his last 2 games. Mitch Marner has been dynamic on that line with him. So after the game last night, the 4-1 win against the Stars, somebody said, I know you want to switch back when you go home, but are you thinking about keeping these lines together?
Oh, boy.
And his response was, I liked what I saw too. Okay, so that means, but are you going to, what does that mean? I don't understand. So when you go home, are you keeping the lines? Are you changing the lines? He just kind of gives you answers like that. They're riddles. It's like he's the oracle, and I feel like I'm trying to dissect what he's saying half the time.
Yeah, that's total Belichick. But you know what? Hey, Belichick wins, so I guess you can't question it. Hopefully it works for Babcock. Hey, one of the things, we've been hearing a lot over the last week, and it's going to start to really ramp up once the All-Star break is over with the trade deadline. I think it's a month from today as we speak. Coming up. I mean, and Ryan McDonough has been a name that's been linked to the Leafs because obviously they need some D. And, of course, you're going to start to hear more D-men around the league being linked to the Leafs. And, of course, everyone always hypothesizes that, look, they're going to trade one of their young forwards to get that stud D they need. What's your take on all that? Because I'm looking at it and saying, yes, I completely agree. I mean, defense is a big need for them, and they could definitely use a guy like Ryan McDonough. But on the flip side, you just went through that pain we referenced early to sort of build up the the youth and build a young core there. Are you really willing to part with one of those so fast to get that D-man, or are they going to look for other routes to do it?
It is interesting because the Leafs do have options. They, at least for one more year, they have money that they can play around with.
Yeah.
Now, when it comes to Ryan McDonough in particular, I always revert to the insiders and, the guys who definitely have their finger on the pulse on this one. And, I've spoken about this with Darren Dreger.
I heard that.
And he's of the belief that, if anyone were to really make a play for Ryan McDonough, because this is a guy, if anything, you'd want to sign for a long-term deal. You don't want him to be a rental. That it would be an off-season thing. He doesn't think that would be somebody that the Leafs would give up a lot for at the trade deadline, and then not even know if he's still going to be a Leaf moving forward. So he said, if anything, that would probably be a conversation Lou would have with, wherever Ryan McDonough is, if he's still with the Rangers, or if he does end up going somewhere trade deadline, he may have a conversation at that point in the off season. So that seems to be the belief when it comes to the Leafs. and McDonough. But that whole defensive situation, I mean, I got to be honest with you, I don't think they're going to make a move for a defenseman at trade deadline unless there's somebody that's available that we don't even know is on the radar. Because, to be honest with you, unless you're getting a guy that's in that top four, why are you getting a depth guy if you're the Leafs? Because right now, you have those depth guys. Right? Like, Travis Dermott is playing out of his skin right now for a 21-year-old playing in the league for the first time.
Wow.
And they're loving what he's bringing. Even Andreas Borgman, the young guy, hasn't really looked out of place. I mean, Robin Polak has, but he's still a guy that Babcock trusts and likes. And he is a guy that can get inserted into the lineup here and there when you want maybe a little bit more of a heavier, grittier game.
In the playoffs, too. He's a playoff type guy, I think. You know what I mean? Like when you use those shutdowns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's the exact argument is you may not like Polak during the regular season, but come playoffs, suddenly, he's somebody that you rely on. So I just feel like, are you giving something up for a depth guy that you kind of already have, right? And so, and then who are you willing to give up for a guy that's going to be in your top four, but yet the Leafs have proven they actually do like their top four. So this is where I still find that, that blue line very interesting when it comes to the Toronto Maple Leafs. So I would not be surprised if they were to make a move at trade deadline, if it maybe ends up being for some sort of depth forward as opposed to a D-man. I have to be really honest. Yeah. And then what I mean by another year of having room to play with is, they could easily just say goodbye to JVR, Bozak, and Komarov. And that's a ton of money. I mean, they're already under the cap come next year, but then that's a ton of money that will once again come off the cap. So they can go shopping for somebody. Maybe it's another year of playing around of, okay, maybe we give Dermott from the start of the season. Maybe we bring up Timothy Liljegren, see what he's got. Like, the options are still there, both financially and within the system for the Toronto Maple Leafs when it comes to, playing around with money if they want to bring somebody in. And then even still exhausting what they have in the system, because I don't think they've done that. I mean, I know they haven't done that. So they still kind of have that year. And even though in our heads we keep talking about this window, the window's closing. I don't think the Leafs feel that way. As far as management, I don't think they think the window's closing as quickly as we seem to think it's closing, right? Because you have to remember, they still have another year as well of not having to pay Matthews and Marner big bucks. The guy who they actually have to pay is Nylander. He's the one whose contract is up, and he's the one that has to be signed first.
Right.
But you don't have to sign Marner or Matthews, so that's still another year. Like I said, if JVR, Bozak, Komarov come off the books, and you're still paying Marner and Matthews entry-level money, I mean, the Leafs are kind of laughing financially, right, with the options that they have. So I believe they think they're still in a very, very good position.
Oh, I mean, if you kind of look at it, you think back to when the Chicago dynasty started and the situation they were in is though, the Taves, the Canes, and all those guys sort of started to reach their potential, or just started really. They were able to kind of maneuver around them, and obviously now they're hampered by those contracts. But I see the same situation. I mean, I agree with you. The Leafs are probably looking at it and saying the media is just looking for stuff to talk about. We're fine, and let's take it at a good pace here. Let's not push it too fast. And I think that's what I like. The points you make there. One other thing before I let you go that I want to talk about with the Leafs, Andy, is Frederik Andersen.
We got to regroup. We got to figure out who wants to commit to playing for the team. I think we have a few days now to the next game or 1 day in between, but we got to come with a different attitude. We played well in the 2 periods, and I think we got to find a way to keep the foot on the gas the whole game. You can't be satisfied at 2-0.
Frustrating for you, Fred, to see a 2-on-1 come down when you guys are on power play?
Yeah, I think a lot of guys on the bench too. Pretty frustrated not being on the power play, and seeing that kind of effort. I think we got to look at each other in the eyes here and determine where we want to go from here.
Do you feel it's mental then for the team in some ways? Or?
Yeah, I mean it's not. I don't think we're tired. I think it's a lack of effort at certain points, and it's something that can't happen. We got to figure this out, and if we want to play any meaningful hockey later, we'll figure it out.
You guys are still picking up points and remain in a very comfortable position in the standings, but it sounds like there's a sense of urgency in the boys. How important is it to kind of turn this around soon?
Yeah, I mean, we're sitting pretty good. I think we got it pretty comfortable, but there can't be any reason for not playing the right way, because we gotta be ready when when it comes to pass play, break here, and it's going to be a lot more tougher for everyone. Team's trying to catch us, and we can't slide like this.
And look, I'm in Boston, so obviously nobody's going to give him much credit here in Boston being a rival, but I love what he's brought this year. And I'm not just referring to his goaltending at the time. I'm referring to him when he called out his teammates and just that leadership he showed there. And I guess to give our listeners more of a little insight into that, what was the reaction like around Toronto amongst media, fans, and, of course, with the players?
Well, I can tell you everyone loved it, from the media to the fans, because what he said was the truth. And it had been boiling for some time. They had been playing poorly at that point, they hadn't picked up a regulation win since December 28th, right? Things were definitely starting to boil over. They were giving up late leads and then losing in overtime. So everyone was waiting for somebody to say something. And it ended up being, Freddie Andersen. And I think, another reason why people love the fact that it came from him is because he's a factor in their wins. He's the reason why they've either picked up wins or been able to hold on and go to extra time, and get that point in games where they probably didn't deserve to even really be in it. So, and I feel like that's a thing in the world of sports, right? You can speak up all you want, but if you don't follow up your words on the field of play, your teammates aren't going to take you seriously, right? The fans aren't going to take you seriously. But this is a guy who's been a factor in the positive things around the Toronto Maple Leafs. He's going out there, busting his butt all the time. So for him to, I wouldn't say he really loses his cool, because if you've ever seen a Freddie Andersen interview, sometimes I wonder if he has the ability to raise his voice and get angry. But, he kind of lost his cool, and everyone just said, yes, finally. And it came from a guy who absolutely had the right to say something. So everyone loved it. Again, Mike Babcock kind of made a comment where he was like, oh, I loved it, this and whatever. And then he kind of threw in, wish he kept it in-house. But it's like, no, I feel like that was something that needed to be said. So, and he included himself. Let's also make it clear. It's not like he said, my teammates stink, these guys aren't trying. It was all we, and us. He most definitely put himself into the conversation when he made those comments. But people loved it.
Good.
People absolutely loved it. So, I think, it worked. You don't want to do it too often, right? Because you don't want to then become just noise in the background. But I think he did it at the right time.
For sure. Well, you know what, Andy, we appreciate you taking all this time to join us. I know you're busy, as you said, with the Olympic prep coming up. And we hope you get better before then. And we wish you the safest travels.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. It was a blast.
All right. That's Andi Petrillo joined us here on Murphy's Hockey Law and CLS Media. We'll talk to you next week.
Maybe we'll rearrange, maybe set the stage for a little change if we stick together. There ain't no mystery tonight. And if we know we're right, put up a fight, what we do tonight.